The update dropped, maps dropped, new weapons dropped, but the most important of all, some changes happened. Well, I don't know if it's the most important, but you know. The rifle, yeah, woo, it got some buffs, it got some changes, and I guess it's just better now. Standing still, your reload increases by roughly 50%, or whatever the actual percentage is. Sub in it, yeah, new weapon attachment for the rifle, yeah. I guess the damage has had an increase because you can now attach the sword bayonet, but weapon damage doesn't increase. So let me just go through every segment by segment without dragging this video on for too long. And yes, I'll also go through the sword bayonet here also. Anyways, the rifle can now reload faster if you stand still. However, this is only possible if you do not move. Well, obviously, if you do not attach the sword bayonet by adding the sword bayonet and standing still, the reload is roughly 15.5 seconds. So to put it simply, if you want to reload the rifle faster, you detach the sword bayonet and stand still. For you camping endless noobs on Hoogamon, this is for you. Now this does not mean that it is completely useless and you have to stay still for it to be beneficial, as if you cannot be bothered to detach your sword bayonet or stand still like your average COD player, you can simply nag your teammates to become a fifer to give you an extra 20% boost. And I don't know the math whilst writing this, so I'ma just display the stats right here. The rifle, as mentioned, can have the sword bayonet attached. Anyways, yeah, you can now melee with your gun, so instead of swinging your sword like some headless chicken, you can just stab from the top, bottom, or even alternate to the side swing. I have no idea why you'd want to do this though, because this either seems laggy as fuck, or I'm just bad at the game. Either way, yay, attachment, W update. So as mentioned, attaching the sword bayonet does alter your reload speed. However, if you stand still whilst reloading with the sword bayonet still attached, it still takes you 15.5 seconds to reload. Although you want to know something funny though? My channel. Anyways, if you are a fan of first person and you like to ADS even though it is practically useless, but hey, more accuracy, you cannot remove your bayonet. Yeah, I ain't lying. If you ADS and try to remove your bayonet, you have to cancel ADSing in order to remove it. And sure, the sword bayonet doesn't seem like a good addition considering it affects the reload speed and you have more delay switching from your gun to the attachment as opposed to switching from your gun to your melee. But if your bayonet bad, doesn't that mean gun bad? It's okay, little Timmy. Go back into the basement. No, the sword bayonet is everything but bad. You see, by attaching it to the rifle, it deals increased damage with less penetration. However, if you just want to have it as your melee, it will deal increased penetration with less damage. So, in a sense, having this as your melee is the default saber, and attaching it to the rifle works like the musket bayonet. So with the new sword bayonet, is it worth it? Well, it's only 250 francs, so it is incredibly cheap to add to the ability to charge or to do a hold fast. And if you're not a fan of that, you can just detach it and use it as a melee. However, with this addition comes a vast variety of, well, personally I do prefer to attach this to the rifle as opposed to having it as your melee. Having the extra damage with less penetration does mean you cannot kill multiple shamblers in quick succession, but it does mean you can contribute towards the team. And if you are still complaining, simply aim for the fucking head. Like, seriously, it isn't that difficult and you basically insta-kill every enemy with a headshot. And because it also works like the musket bayonet, you can go behind a wall and safely melee bombers. Okay, are you happy now? Yeah, in short, this update is amazing. Everything else might be laggy, like the update, changes, the map, I'm kidding. And even introducing a 5 reload buff towards a long reloadable weapon while standing still is extraordinary. Granted, for you C-man lovers, no, this isn't a thing for the knock gun, stay sad, womp womp. However, this is exactly what the rifle needed to be a viable option towards the musket, HAP, and carbine. Now, that doesn't mean it's anywhere near as good as the HAP or carbine, but what about its younger brother, the musket? Yeah, you thought I wasn't going to compare it to one of the most similar guns in the game? Hell no, this needed to be done. Now the musket, default for the infantry class and accessible to new players. If you adore this, you'll love the rifle, as it is basically a better version. Yeah, I said it, and I ain't saying it as an opinion, it's fact. Now the musket's reload is 10 seconds, we all know that, but adding an extra second on that is literally the reload speed for the rifle, if you're standing still that is. But by spending your hard-earned francs on extra damage, accuracy, range, and penetration, the facts make it obvious. But let's be honest about the reload for a second. The chances of you moving and shooting isn't as common as you may think. Take Leipzig for example. The only two spots you're going to be at for shooting bombers is here and here. Take Korba's another example, just camping on the stairs to fire into the one singular spot to the dungeon to support your team. It says it all. The update just makes it so the rifle is more viable, but is it the best gun in the game? Honestly, it has a lot of potential. It may not be the best, but it's honestly top 10, maybe even top 5. It could also be said that the rifle on its own doesn't even need the sword bayonet to make it beneficial. That's entirely up to player dependency. The sword bayonet is good, the rifle is amazing. Put the two together, you got an outstanding weapon. By equipping the sword bayonet, you're allowing yourself to go into a hold fast state and charge, whereas for the other people of G&B, the heavy saber will allow you to charge. And sure, an argument could be said that the sword bayonet is worse, than the heavy saber, and in terms of damage, range and penetration, you're right, it would be better to run the heavy saber and rifle as a duo, but it all depends on what type of player you are. If you prefer to run headfirst into a horde, use the heavy saber. If you prefer to support your team, use a sword bayonet. I'm not saying the sword bayonet gives the player more support for the team, I'm just saying by using the sword bayonet attached to the rifle, you can go into holdfast mode, which means the officer's spontoon ability isn't wasted. Now, as far as I'm aware, that is everything about the rifle that needed to be covered in terms of facts and opinions. There may be little finer details to cover, but let's be honest, who wants to know about the minute details down to the 0.001 seconds? Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Bye.